It's just a way to, okay, it's a way for us to make sure that the information stays active for you in the future. So think about this as a bit of a webinar, a bit of a little history lesson, an introduction, and a chance to ask questions. So this is our agenda specifically. So we'll try to go through all of this information in a generally fun way, but it is what it is. So let me get started. Let's see. Great. So really, I think if you're in Sandy Springs and you're running for office, then the history of Sandy Springs and how it evolved and how it was formed is probably very familiar to you. But again, it's not a city that was established years and years ago. It's really a city that has had a short history as an organization and as a community that's been structured in a way of a city. So specifically, you can see that it started in general with the Creek Muskegee tribe settling in this area, ultimately Mr. Spruill having the acreage that was donated for a church, and then the springs were there. That was how one got the place name. And I am probably the least knowledgeable person to teach this section of the history of Sandy Springs, but that's the information that we have, and certainly you can read more about it because our former mayor, Eva Columbus, really championed the idea of bringing Sandy Springs into an incorporated city. And so she spent a number of years focused in on that. She put it together the work that allowed a referendum, a vote to be incorporated. And so then finally, the city needed to start in some way, shape, or form, and that was what I've often heard members refer to as just finding ways to bring the staff up to speed quickly. And so the public-private partnership model was established, and that's how they got started. But in 2019, there was a shift. There was a cost comparison done at that time, and there was a shift to move employees from the contractor model in-house. And so that was done mostly in 2019. Now, remember, the police department and the fire department have always been public employees delivering those services. Good. So in general, the council manager form of government is one form of government across the U.S. Sometimes you might hear about a strong mayor form of government, and that's when there's a full-time mayor elected repeatedly or running for office and providing a professional mayoralship. And so that is an option. This is the council manager form of government that Sandy Springs identified that they would like to have. So here you are in your districts, and you can see just generally the distribution of the population. So each of those districts is equally generally populated for that. And we want to be sure that that we give all of this information to each of you. So let me take a pause here and just give you the why. So this, sorry, this is hard to talk through. This session today is very important for me to give to you so that we can have a great conversation about local government. You're taking the time to learn about it, you're taking the time to run, taking the time to potentially win and then volunteer for your community. And I just want you to have a great first start. And I have to be able to give that to each of you. And I'll explain a little more why in a moment. But it's important for us to all receive the same information and for me to make sure that it's complete for you. So City Council in each year, but this year, these are our adopted priorities. City Council and the mayor do this work in January of each year for a retreat. And so the priorities can change, they can shift a little bit, but as you know, cities are generally have a focus, and so that focus has been generally this list for a while. So you can see things like public safety being right there, highest quality public safety. That's been a very top priority for the city. You can see words like sustainable growth and environmental stewardship. So we want to continue to improve on how we build out our community, rebuild our community, have our buildings provide sustainable functions. And then certainly the economic development opportunities on the north end have been a focus, and the list is there. So the work is done in January of each year, and it's adopted as a direction for the staff then to build the budget. Internally, so that's sort of the external set of priorities. Internally, the staff are starting to determine what our focus is about working together and carrying out the mission of the city. And so this is a draft. It's still not in final form. I think it still needs some work, but we've needed to begin to figure out our organizational mission as we've brought staff in-house. And so we always want to focus on specifically the three things of innovation, inclusion, and effectiveness. And that this is a set of work, a body of work that our 130 plus supervisors put together. They work together from all across the departments to identify this work. And our values, the words that mean something to us in the organization, are on the right, and that really drives how we get our work done. And so in my role as city manager, I'm charged with carrying out the wishes of city council, but I'm also required to begin to grow the culture in the organization and figure out how to get the work done the best way I know how. And that for me is a very collaborative process. So by the fact that most of our directors are here today and we're participating in this forum, we want you to see that that's the work that I feel is important for us to give to you. So then there's the charter, and I see several of you taking pictures. That is so fine. We will definitely be sending this PowerPoint out so you have access to it. So I don't want you to stress about that, and keep taking pictures if you want to. That's perfect. Our charter, the charter is one I will cover quickly. And we've had several people even in this room be on the Charter Commission. And so there is a lot of emphasis that we've placed on the charter this year. But just be sure to know that if you have not dived into the charter, it is our constitution of sorts for the city of Sandy Springs. And it was, as our city was established in 2005, this charter allows it to be shaped in a unique way for Sandy Springs. So Georgia's law allows cities to have certain laws in its building, and the charter is on top of that, really guiding specifically Sandy Springs. The same thing can be the case for other cities. They would have their own charters, and then the charter part isn't unique to the organization or to the city. And so we have a few things that were developed specifically. So an ordinance and a resolution are just two words you'll start to hear more and more. I mean, ordinance is really a law that's being written. So often the ordinances provide council with changes to the law. So if it's a zoning ordinance change or an ordinance related to paying fees, things that go back to the code are ordinances in most cases, and resolutions are more of an expression or a way of saying this is important to us. So those are two different terms. You just want to become familiar with that. These are our articles in the charter. All of this is found online, and we'll give you the links at the end so you can go back to that. And so The section 1.03 talks about ethics. And so today, I think it's very important for us to have an ethical focus for all the work that we do. And so this is where the charter talks about ethics, that we do actually have an ethics board. We have a code of ethics in the charter, and that's in section 2-104. Again, this is here for your reference. Go back and read through that. And it's important for you to know that it's a very important part of our daily work at the staff level and at the elected and volunteer level. As each of you are running, most of you are running for a council seat, some are running for mayor. This is the authority of council as defined by the charter. And certainly the council makes those decisions. The administrative and service departments are defined in section 212. And so I think there's two key pieces here. One is that the council can, except for this position, do several things among the departments to consolidate offices, positions of employment, departments and agencies. That's important for you to know that that's in the charter. The second thing is that we would do that work, and we can also do that with the private sector, and hence that second bullet, meaning that we can have contracted employees to carry out those services. Did it click? Oh, there we go. Boards and commissions, we've got several that we'll go through very quickly. And I'll just move on to that. Okay. I've gone too fast. I apologize. Here we go. So boards and commissions, and we'll identify those in just a moment. Powers and duties of the mayor. This is the list that gives you the flavor for what the mayor is required to do in the charter itself. Anybody have any questions? And I apologize. And I know some of you have been on the charter commission, been a part of it. I just feel obligated to run through this. The city manager role, in my role, I certainly work at the pleasure of city council. So the 6 positions hire and fire me at the recommendation of the mayor. And then I can work as the budget officer. I need to keep council informed all the time about the financial needs of the city, but there are staff that join up and partner with me to get that done. We're working on a pay and classification plan right now. That last bullet is also a big part of the work that I'm doing, along with staff. All right, and I promised you I'd explain sort of why we're gathered here today. And why, for me, it is so that I can fulfill the ICMA, International City and County Managers Association Code of Ethics. I'm a member of that organization. It requires me to do these things, to follow these things. And number 7 just doesn't allow me to meet individually with you and give you one-person information or participate in any way that allows you to have access beyond what the next candidate would have or our incumbents would have. All of you all are candidates right now. And so I've just got to stay safe and be nonpartisan and refrain from that. And you can see the list goes on and on. I have to be sure that I'm keeping the community informed, and I have to encourage communication between citizens and local government officers. I also feel like that's what we're doing here today as I'm trying to foster this discussion about the election, about how to be a participant in the election and how to be eventually a council member. So I have to go back to this list. And certainly the department directors have their professional organizations that may also very much drive how they have to respond to things. Okay, so keep going on the charter, and that's the city council interference. It's worded this way, but might feel like it's a bit in our faces with that wording, but here's what that really means. It means that the council works at a policy level and the manager is responsible to carry out the day-to-day operations. So it would be very important for you in your role as a city council member to direct your questions and your inquiries through the office of the city manager, so that we can filter that information out to the staff that then give us a response back, and my office can get back to you. We have a bit of a way we do that. We need to make sure it's efficient, effective, kind, open, and very much working for you, not against you, but the questions that you ask really need to start with our office. And our fiscal year, July 1 is our beginning of our fiscal year, so we do quite a bit of planning leading up to that. And then council considers all the budget amendments for the year. And so that may be different than what you've experienced in the private sector. So we need to, I have a spending authority of up to $99,999,000 or $100,000, right? So anything above that goes to city council for approval. The annual audit is done every year. The auditors are here now, and we bring that information to city council when it is completed. And with that, these are the boards and commissions. So I'm going to keep going, and we'll take a break in just a little bit. This is the longest part. Our Public Facilities Authority is a body that Georgia's law sets out that allows cities to commit public funds for a period of time. And so I've got, if you've got questions about that, I'm happy to field those, or our attorney's office can field those, but that is the way that, that we approve projects related to our public buildings. The Sandy Springs City Council and Mayor, they sit as members of the PFA. And you'll see that on the agenda. We'll have a separate called meeting for that work. Our Board of Appeals considers changes or appeals to the zoning regulations. And so that this list of volunteers does that work for us. The Planning Commission considers special use permits and other planning items, long range plans, changes in zoning, things like that. And this is that group. Our Board of Ethics, again, this is our group of volunteers for the Board of Ethics. Here's our Development Authority, separate legal entity created to authorize funding for economic development projects in Sandy Springs. Visit Sandy Springs is the Hospitality Board, and they operate because they receive funding from the hotel motel tax. And so that work is done with that board and with Jennifer Cruz, the executive director, and her team. Our Diversity and Inclusion Task Force was created last fall, and that work continues. And so this is the team working on that task.
What's the difference between a task force and a committee?
I understand. I will let the attorneys help me with this, but my understanding is that the task force is not set in the charter. It's outside the charter. It's usually a specific initiative. It may have a finite timeline. These other boards and commissions have bylaws, have timelines that don't end, things like that. What else? Anything else to add, Kathy? Okay, yeah, good question. All right, the budget process, just one slide here. This is our calendar. To me, we're always in some phase of the budget and we work on the fiscal year. So that year 2023 is what we're working on now, meaning we're preparing for next July. So when you see the FY and you see the year, it's always the end of the fiscal year that it relates to, not the beginning. So we're currently in fiscal year 22, Does that make sense to everybody? It's a little tricky to get your brain to think about that sometimes, but so we're in fiscal year 22, even though it's 2021, but it started July 1 and runs through June 30th, 2022. We are planning doing the beginning work of FY 2023. But here's what we do. We begin the audit, we reconcile our fund balance, we think about our capital projects earlier and earlier, and I like starting in December, so we're building that list to give to council in their retreat. We've created a 5-year CIP this year for the first time, and so that's a capital improvement program. And so we want to start a little earlier. We then do the retreat where council creates those priorities. They also have a discussion about the budget. We move into getting the operations of the department budgets put together, 3 workshops and 2 public hearings, and then the budget adoption. And there's a public process all the way through that part. And so I'm going to take a break here and we'll turn it over to Dave Wells. Dave is our deputy city manager. He's been with the city for over 10 years. And so he is in charge of seeing these projects through to completion, among many other things. So Dave, I'll let you cover this. And if you'd like to take the clicker. You want Sam to click it? You want Sam to do it?
Good evening, I'm Dave Wells. Thank you for coming over here. So on top of all of this, CIP loss projects, we also have these 5 major.
Dave, I think your mic's actually off.
Check. Okay. Good evening. On top of all the CIP projects and T-SPLOST projects we have going on, these are 5 of our major construction projects. We have Fire Station 2. That's in construction right now. It's due to be finished sometime in early 2022. The Public Safety Center, that's down on Morgan Falls Road. That is due to be finished sometime in late 2023. That's going to comprise of our police headquarters, our municipal court, some community meeting rooms in there. We have a fleet maintenance center we're putting out there, a fuel depot, and also house our future Fire Station 1 in Chadcom. We have a proposed fire station up on the north end, Fire Station 5. We have a citywide wayfinding, and we have the Veterans Park, which is right over here, the Mount Vernon and Johnson's Ferry Road. This is our Fire Station 2. Like I said, it is under construction right now. It is on schedule to be finished sometime early spring of 2022. Fire Station 5 is our proposed site up there on the north end. That is going through a conditional use permit process right now. It goes front of council on the 21st. Wayfinding, this is divided into 3 different phases. We are currently working on the Gateway Monument signs and the City Springs Center signs. Then we'll be moving into the phase 2, which is all our vehicle directional signage throughout the city, and then pedestrian and directional and kiosk signs. This is due to be some finished late 2022. And here's Jim, we're very proud of this one. This is Veterans Park. That's just to the east here of our Performing Arts Center. It's tied in with our T-SPLOST project on that site. We are estimating completion sometime late 2023. And this here is our Public Safety Center. We are in design right now with that. We are close to getting our risk contractor on board. And we will start construction sometime early next year, and with a completion late in 2023. Any questions on our major construction projects?
And so next we have Kristen Smith, and Kristen is wrapping up maternity leave. So she's on Zoom. She's excited. She'd probably love to show you her little one. But she has been an integral part. You probably know her from years of being at the city of Sandy Springs. She's our assistant city manager. And Kristen, if you want to talk about your favorite thing, the next 10.
Yes, the next 10 is absolutely my favorite thing. And I'm sorry, everyone, that I couldn't be there with you today. My little one is 8 weeks old and she had her tongue tie corrected today. So if you hear crying in the background, I'm sorry. My husband's taking care of her, but she's a little fussy today. So the next 10 is the city's comprehensive plan. So it really sets the vision for the future and establishes a set of policies and recommendations that guide all of the decisions that our city council make. The plan was adopted in February of 2017, but the planning process really began in early 2015. So the process was incredibly robust. It included a ton of community meetings, visioning sessions. We had an advisory committee, stakeholder interviews, focus groups. We did a series of online polls and surveys, and we had an interactive map where people could point out different things in the city that they wanted to talk about. We had mobile workshops, really trying to meet people where they are in the community. So even events like the Sandy Springs Festival, which is actually the picture that you see on your screen. The plan includes several key components like community goals, needs and opportunities, a community work program, and elements that focus on capital improvements, economic development, land use, transportation, and housing. In addition, we also completed several small area plans, which focused on MARTA stations, the Perimeter Center, Powers Ferry area, and the Roswell Road corridor. So on the next slide, the first thing I want to talk about are the community goals, and we called these 10 for the next 10. So these are really broad goals. They establish the guiding framework for the policies and actions that you find later in the plan that include a lot more detail. These were identified really early on in the process based on all of the stakeholder feedback that we received, and they're further refined within the plan itself. So I want to touch on these at a high level. We focused on preserving our existing neighborhoods, improving mobility citywide for all modes of transportation, building connections between neighborhoods, between green spaces, and within key destinations in the city, and improving our open spaces and expanding them as well. The plan strives for, sorry, Sam, if you'll go to the next slide. The plan strives for a city that continues to thrive economically and for a balanced and attainable city that serves as a home for all generations and income levels. It hopes to maximize the potential of existing transit infrastructure and promote redevelopment in targeted areas like areas adjacent to MARTA stations and other walkable nodes. Next slide. Lastly, the plan calls for the creation of unique places to enhance the quality of life for city residents and the creation of development management tools to implement the vision of the plan. So once we adopted the next 10, we were actually able to create an entirely new development code that aligns directly with the vision established within the next 10. On the next slide, you'll see key actions, 10 key actions for the next 10. So there are a ton of action items in the plan itself, but we pulled out 10 key focus areas of action. So these talk about different things like revitalization of Roswell Road, transformation of the perimeter and medical center areas into live-work districts, achieving a better housing balance with a variety of types and price points, the transformation of the Hammond Drive corridor, mitigation of traffic congestion, developing an expanded trail network, and enhancing our open spaces. So as you can hear, a lot of those tie back to those overarching goals that we just talked about. Next slide. And the last thing I really want to focus on when we talk about the next 10 are character areas. You'll hear a lot about character areas when we're talking about any land use items at city council meetings, rezonings, that sort of thing. The character area map serves as our future land use map. It identifies specific areas of the city that have special or unique characteristics based on either existing conditions or the vision for the future, depending on how those two align. The land use element of the plan includes summary descriptions of each character area. So that includes a general vision for the area. It tells you what kinds of land uses are appropriate, and it talks about how we implement the vision for each of the character areas. And these character areas are further implemented by direct ties to the development code. So overall, the Next 10 is a product of significant community feedback, and it's an integral part of the work that we do every day. It serves as the basis for a number of staff recommendations to council. So I encourage you to take a look if you haven't already had a chance to do so. With that, I think I'm turning it over to our city clerk, Raquel Gonzalez, and she's going to talk about our council meetings.
Sorry, I have to remind myself a couple times a day to swap out my mask, but it's good to see you all again. It's nice to see everybody in the same room. I just want to very briefly go, it's a very high level conversation about council meetings and sort of how they work for us here at the city. So generally speaking, Andrea spoke a little bit earlier about the roles of the city manager, who really runs the day-to-day operations of City Hall, the roles of the city council, who are the legislative body, putting forward the annual budget, adopting local laws and regulations, and also of the mayor, who primarily represents the city in intergovernmental relations, appointing citizens to boards and commissions with the approval of, with the confirmation of city council, and providing over city council meetings. Next slide, please. So typically, how is it that things get on the agenda? On the left side of the screen, we see this sort of workflow of how it is determined the various things that make it to the agenda. The city manager is tasked with drafting the draft agenda, and she does that with the help of staff. But also city council, they provide items to council or to the mayor that they would like to see up for discussion. They might get that input from citizens within your district. The mayor then approves those, or maybe doesn't approve those conversations. Should they be approved, they're passed on to the city manager to add to her draft agenda. There's a lot of work though that goes between the time these session items are kind of drafted and put forward. They go through a review process through legal and finance, and then the final agenda items are presented to the city manager, who then provides that final draft to the mayor, and then the mayor gives the final yes or no as to what items make it on the agenda. Next slide. So this is the timeline for that we work with internally to get those discussions moving forward. It's a pretty, there are a lot of dates on the schedule, but I'll give you an example on the next slide. So what you see here is the timeline for items that are going forward on the October 6th city council meeting. At the very minimum, we'd like to get a month's advance notice as to what topics we can anticipate to be on the agenda. So you'll see for the October 6th meeting, we'll know around the 9th of September whether or not an item is being proposed for that agenda. By the 23rd, we can expect to see all of those item materials. So that would be like your draft resolutions, ordinances, cover memos, presentations, contracts, any of the complementing documents that address that conversation. Then after the Thursday, that's staff's deadline. And by the following Monday, so this is like 8 days before the city council, departments heads are expected to finalize their review of those documents. That includes that legal and finance review we talked about. And then by the Wednesday before the city manager, or excuse me, the Wednesday before the city council meeting, you can expect the city manager to give her approval as to yes or no, that item should go forward on the draft. And then that same day we put it in front of the mayor. And by that Friday, so the Friday before the council meeting, we're doing our final publishing. There are some expectations, though that schedule really represents regular city council meetings. But we do have things like special called city council meetings, perhaps like in times of an emergency where there is, you know, who knows, an emergency could be a bunch of reasons, but we can work within a shorter timeline to get those specific conversations at a public meeting on the agenda. Next slide, please. So this very briefly talks about parliamentary procedure at city council meetings. The city of Sandy Springs will always default to the Robert's Rules of Order during its council meetings and during them to help guide the course of the conversation, with the city attorney serving as the council's parliamentarian. And generally, council work is seen in the votes or the motions that they present for getting policy items approved. And so you'll see council members say, I move to approve or deny X. Then that is generally followed by a second from another member on the board or council. They will then debate amongst each other the merits of that motion and then do a final vote as to whether that item passes or fails. Next slide. That's it. So just a very high level overview of what that might look like.
All right, we have talked at you a lot. Does anybody have questions about anything?
I had one about the next 10 plans.
Great.
You said it started in 2015 and
Here we go.
it's okay. You said it was started in 2015 and adopted in 2017. So it seemed like it's almost been 2 years.
Kristen, are you still there? I think that's an important aspect. And we have planning documents that we do update every 5 years, right? So there's some elements that maybe you could expound on, Kristen.
Yes, so we will do a 5-year update to the next 10. So typically for our major plans, we do a significant update every 10 years, but we definitely always do a 5-year check-in, sort of see where we are, update the work program, all those kinds of things. So we will be doing that. You're absolutely right. We're coming up on that 5-year mark.
Okay, thank you. And we've got a question from Megan Harris online. So hey, hi Megan. Do task forces have any type of authority besides researching and delivering information? And mine, I'm going to look to the attorney for some guidance and help with that. But my understanding is there's not any authority to a task force at the time. They're tasked with researching and identifying recommendations back to the elected body and to the mayor. So unless more was written about what they should do, and that would have to have some basis in law, then I don't believe they have that kind of authority. But any other legal guidance, Kathy? Right, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good question. Okay, that's it. Other questions from the group? All right, let's take a break for a few minutes. We will get back in at 4:50. That gives us a chance to run down the hall. There's a break for food, talk to your neighbors, and then we'll start in on the departments. All right, so we'll ask you to find your seat again in just a moment. Feel free to get anything else you need, and then we'll make your way back. Mindful of people's evening. I'm just so glad that it's not pouring rain. I wasn't sure what we would get here at 5 o'clock. So. All right, so we've got a number of city departments. And again, as I mentioned earlier, police and fire have always been a city departments. They would kill me for saying it even that way. Police has been its department, fire has been its own department. We are also glad to have a number of the other contractors become, their folks coming in and become individual departments as well. So this next part is really think about, it's like the meet and greet. Who the director is, what department they serve, maybe a little bit about how long you've been with the city. And then just, it's a one slide, maybe two at the most for each department. I think the thing that I would love for you to take away is knowing sort of what we do as far as city services and what we don't do. So you will not hear about solid waste. That is not a real function in the city. And so that's just one example. So stop us at any time if you have questions about the types of things that we do or don't do. That's the kind of interaction I hope you feel like we can have today. So we're going to start with just the structure, and here we have the organizational structure as it stands today. So these are all the folks represented by this group beside me, and we'll get right to it. So our city clerk gets to come back up one more time and explain her department.
So I know each of you through qualifications and through my role as the election superintendent for the city. Although speaking in terms of election, typically what we do simply is qualify individuals. At this point, I've transferred all your names over to Fulton County, and they're starting to build the ballots. And from here on out, your conversation about running the actual logistics of running will be with Fulton and not with me, but I'm happy to assist any way I can and get you connected with people if you have a question I can't answer. But in addition to that, the city clerk is the official record keeper here in the city. And so it's a lot of fun for my very small but mighty office. It essentially means that we support all these great people over here in the management of their records. We're responsible for maintaining the official actions of not just council, but really all boards and commissions here in the city. But and that comes in terms of maintaining the meeting minutes that happen at any of our public meetings, coordinating those agendas, perhaps any legislation that's coming through council, those ordinances, those resolutions, and other official documents with those public boards. We also maintain all of the agreements and contracts within the city. So while these folks are out doing the work that they do with various vendors, we keep record of the agreements that the cities made between themselves and those vendors. And then the last bullet here, we manage the city's open records request program. So as citizens or patrons, whomever have questions looking for city documents, it's my office that they coordinate those requests through. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. So as several of you may know, I first started with the city back in 2011 as the executive assistant for the mayor and the city manager. I worked with Mayor Columbus and Mayor Paul and our former city manager, John McDonough, for quite some time. Left the city of Sandy Springs in 2018 to the city of Doraville, where I served as their city clerk, and then returned back to Sandy Springs in 2020. So for me, Sandy Springs is home. I'm your neighbor, not just your city clerk. And you know, it's a big part of my family's life here in the city. And communications. So Jason Ford,
All right, Jason, you're up next when you're ready.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So yes, I'm Jason Fornicola. I'm the new communications director. I've been with the city for just about 3 weeks. I'm really excited to be here. We have two real purposes that we serve in communications. One is to be an in-house newsroom and also as a marketing agency. And so we really want to get the message of the city out to not only the residents, but the surrounding area, the state of Georgia and around the region. As you can see, some of the capabilities that we have there, I will also share with you just a couple of other things that we will focus on as well. So one of those is that we want to use as much data as possible to track results and to drive decisions. We want to tell the story of the city of Sandy Springs, not just as I mentioned here locally and around the region, but we think we have a lot to share on the national level as well. So we'll pursue those opportunities as they come up. We want to make sure that we're meeting people where they are and how they receive communications. So if somebody has a certain preferred style, we want to be able to provide it to them. And then lastly, we just will continue to grow. I think over the course of the last year and a half, we've learned a lot of different things about how we work, how we live, and really how we communicate. And our department is going to continue to grow and evolve and serve the city of Sandy Springs.
Great. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you so
Anybody
much.
have questions for Jason? All right, appreciate it. And we have Ginger next up.
There we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Ginger Stile, and I'm the Community Development Director. I'm the Community Development Director. I've been with the city for almost 6 years. And I'm in charge of 4 different divisions. Planning and zoning, which is the part of the division that takes care of all the rezonings, the text amendments. We also handle the Board of Appeals and planning and zoning, planning commission. We have land development, building division, and code enforcement. So any complaints that you all want to make or file with the city, take those to code enforcement. And we handle all the permitting for commercial and residential. We also host anywhere from 4 to 8 Build Sandy Springs seminars a year, which covers various topics from how to build a pool or how to take care of our trees, our tree ordinance. Pretty much anything having to do with construction, we take care of in those seminars. Next slide. This one's for you all. So we handle all the signs in code enforcement. So the sign ordinance is found in our development code. And when you're working on your campaigns, I'm sure you're going to put signs out. And just a few rules to try to follow. On residential properties, you can have a total of 2 temporary signs, which you don't need a permit for, and they can't exceed a maximum of 6 square feet. So you can have 2 3-square-foot signs on a residential lot. On commercial properties, they're allowed to have a 16-square-foot sign or total of sign area on the lot. So if, say, for example, you approach someone you know at a commercial property and you say, hey, can I put my sign out? If they have a sign, say, for rent or for sale, that counts as one of their free signs. So if you go ahead and put your sign out there, it may put them over that limit. Now, we will not actively pursue illegal signs. That's not what we're here for. But if somebody calls in a complaint, we have to act on the complaint equally across the board. So if one of you complains or if all of you complain, we have to treat each complaint on its own merit. So we have to go out and see whether or not the signs need to be pulled. If the signs need to be pulled out, we'll kind of give you a little bit of grace. So you should talk to all the people who you're going to be working with and who are going to help you put the signs out and let them know these rules. So signs cannot be placed in the right of way, and that's usually a thin grass strip between the sidewalk and the roadway. Signs can be placed no closer than 10 feet behind the back of sidewalk, the curb if there is no sidewalk, or the edge of pavement if there is no curb. So in no instance should the sign be any closer than 10 feet to the edge of the pavement, or the edge of the back of the curb, or the edge of the sidewalk. So we will remove the signage that's in the right of way. We will actively, if one of my officers is out there driving around and we see it in the right of way, they'll probably pick it up. They will try in their hardest to find out whose sign it is and call you and contact you and let you know we have it. Get it. If we find that it's a repeating problem, we're gonna stop calling you and we're just gonna dispose of the signs because it kind of just takes a little too much effort. So again, we will not actively look for violations, but certainly if somebody does call something just to our attention, we do have to attend to it. So if you all have any questions for me on any of this or anything that my department does, I'd be happy to answer the question.
So I think this contradicts the information that was in the.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
This is what we should go by, not what we were given.
That's correct. So Rocky, in her zealousness to help you,
I thought we
she
agreed
was,
to blame this on you.
she gave out the information and then she says to me, what do you think? And I was like, oh, no. So our code did change from the last time that was produced. So I apologize that Rocky didn't have the updated information, but this is really what you should go by, and you can email me or call me and ask me any questions about any of this stuff anytime.
That's different than general, like, asking Ginger about what her thoughts are about the city. So we really do want to be a good.
We really do want to be a good advocate for making sure you know the rules. And so Ginger is given, she's got permission to talk to you about this sign piece, because that's really part of your running for office, the logistics of that. That's a little different than just calling up one of us to talk in general terms about finances or other.
Anyone, anything else?
I have a Zoom question.
Okay,
Can you repeat it to the mic for me?
yes.
So, Linda Trippy asked, does the general guidance apply to private residential property as well?
Does the general guidance
Apply
apply to private
residential property?
residential properties as well? If it's on private property and it's not in the right of way, we're not going to pursue picking up the signs. If somebody calls to complain to say, hey, there's more than 2 signs totaling 6 square feet on that person's property, and we go out and say there's 6 signs, and we'll pick up 4. That's, we'll leave it in compliance and we'll collect the other 4, we'll call if we can. If we can find the information for the candidate, we'll hold the signs until you come get them, or if you say to us, go ahead, throw them out. So yes, we'll treat them the same.
So, and after this meeting, there's a bunch of information I need to forward to you guys. I will include this so you have the specific slide sheet. I'll also publish it online with the rest of the candidate information.
No one else? Right. Who's up next? John.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sean Albertson. I head up Create City Springs. We are the cultural arm of what we do here in the city. And in order to do that, we connect up artists and nonprofits and various cultural endeavors and connect them up through the performances that we do, the facilities we offer, and the programming that we provide. And in doing so, we're connecting up the community and bringing a kind of deeper understanding of who the citizens are, who the community is, and who the city is, and how we all kind of work together to create this cultural narrative. So we are, we manage the operations of facilities, cultural facilities. That includes the Performing Arts Center. and the outdoor venues that we have, the studio theater, which is where we have council meetings, and other venues like the Heritage Site as well. And then we make sure that we provide the right type of diversity and inclusion in our programming so that we are reaching out to all of the community members within Sandy Springs. And then we connect up the dots regionally, locally, and nationally with all of our artists. You have in front of you one of our brochures. That's our season for this year. It has all of our presented items in there, a couple of our season's city signature events, which include some of our holidays. If we could look at the next slide. You can see some of our signature events here. We do everything from the Lantern Parade to the Concerts by the Springs, our free concert series, both on the other side over by Heritage and our free concert series right here. Farmers Market is another thing that we provide. Out front here on the city green that we've just recently brought that on board. That was used to be done by a different organization, and then we brought it on board just during the pandemic, actually. And I think there's one more slide. Yeah. So these are the other city signature events that we do. So pretty much if you're looking for the community events, that's my team that does this. Connected up with the ticketed events, we do those as well. So if there's any questions. Great. Short and sweet.
But they all have the brochure.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And please let me know. Yes, I'll send you a ticket.
So I'm just saying that to don't go for later.
Okay, let's talk economic development. So economic development in the city focuses on 3 key areas: retention, recruitment, and redevelopment. We work with a number of local and regional partners to regularly touch base with our existing businesses and to recruit new businesses to the city. Our redevelopment efforts are targeted to areas of the city that really just need some additional focus. For instance, we initially focused on redevelopment in and around what you know now as City Springs. And we did that through the City Center Master Plan. And we're actually in the process of updating that plan. To the question earlier, that plan was adopted in 2012, and it's really time to do a comprehensive update to that plan. So we are in the process of doing that to figure out what's next for the district. We're also focused specifically on revitalization of the North End. We recently completed work on conceptual plans for a few key sites in the North End, an example of which you can see on your screen right now. And as a next step from that planning effort, we are focusing on modifications to our zoning ordinance and evaluating incentives for redevelopment. With that, I'll pause to see if there are any questions. Okay, I'll turn it over to Ron, our facilities manager.
Hi, my name is Ron Dermeyer. I'm the facilities, charge of facilities. And part of our duty, we manage this facility, City Springs here. It's 600,000 square feet, 14-acre site. And jet, and we take care of the 4 annex over there. It's 16,000 square feet. And the city warehouse, it's 15,000 square feet. In our team, we have engineering staff, security, and then construction project management. We also provide property management services across the city. And I've been here since 2018. Questions?
Hello, I'm Tony Jo Howard. I'm the finance director. I've been with the city just shy of a year, as I started in November of last year. And I have worked at other municipalities throughout the state. So obviously finance, anything that touches money, that comes through us. So that's everything from the bills that we pay to the money that we collect down in our revenue department. We also handle purchasing, which is any of our bids that we put out for the city. And then anything that you would typically think of with finance, which would include our general ledger, our budget, our audit, and also any of the monthly reporting that we do for management and council. Questions?
Good evening. My name is Keith Sanders. Been with the city since October 2014. And as the fire chief, I was served for about 126 employees. 100 of those are in the fire departments. Our goal is to provide excellence in fire and EMS response. We also have specialty units within our organization for heavy rescue, high angle rescue, and we have about, working along with the police department, about 20 to 30 river rescues every year on the Chattahoochee. We continue our community risk reduction through engineering, enforcement, and education in our fire marshal's office. It's a big role that we play. In 2014, we had a fire problem, worked with the city council to adopt apartment ordinance for better fire inspections, better fire prevention strategies, and we reduced the structure fires almost 80% in apartment complexes. We've been very fortunate and been very proactive working with the community there. Provides citywide emergency management coordination through preparation, response, recovery, and mitigation to ensure continuity of operations and assistance. Our citizen recovery from natural or man-made disasters. Always speaking of the pandemic, we have been boots on the ground since day one of the first word of pandemic coming into Fulton County, working with our assisted living facilities day one, meeting with them every week, as well as helping with the testing, vaccines. Sandy Springs fire personnel administered almost 70,000 vaccines in individuals' arms here in North Fulton. So we've been very proactive in helping to manage that. Still reaching out to the apartment complexes and asking them, can we be of assistance there to do that as well? We have a wonderful staff in that area working. Civilian Fire Corps volunteer program we implemented here in the Springs. We have a staff volunteer force of about 30 volunteers that work there. They go on the emergency scenes with us. They also respond on emergency scenes for when SWAT is activated to do rehab. For those incidences, they play a huge role. Speaking of our fire department, we have 5 locations where we provide service. Our facilities, the city council approved rebuilding Station 2, which is being constructed right now, the corner of Sandy Springs Circle and Johnson's Ferry. It was almost a 60-year-old building. The other buildings that we acquired when the city became a city was the one at the corner of Roberts and Spalding. It's as well was built in the 60s. That will be the future home. Will be there on the beside the police headquarters there on Morgan Falls. Where the plans are to do that. And then Station 5, which is going to be built in the Panhandle, should it be approved. That current truck is currently in the Roswell Fire Station on Holcomb Ridge Road. It's 0.9 miles outside the city. And then our Station 4, which the city owns, is actually in the city of Atlanta on Wyuka Road. And we hope long term we can bring that within the city as well. And then the fire station on Hertz Ferry is our newest station, and it serves that side of the community as well. Next slide. Fire Department Community Outreach Program. We have a Citizens Fire Academy, and through that Fire Academy, we have a certification, Community Emergency Response Team, and those that would like to further and become more involved, the Fire Corps program is an opportunity for them to be involved there as well. We have a Community Outreach Program where we have caregiver training, CPR training, fire safety, fire extinguisher training, evacuation drills out of our high rises and our facilities, senior facilities, personal care facilities, assisted care facilities, fire warden training, and the high rise occupancy planning exercise that we utilize as well. We provide blood pressure checks for citizens, car safety inspections, fire station visits. We host a lot of families for birthday parties. Sure, that'll be a huge attraction in our new fire station over here, Station 2. So we're excited to finally get beyond the pandemic and be able to have those events and activities again with our community. We have a very recognizable and well-known honor guard program here. Police department does, as well as the fire department. And then pharmaceutical and sharp disposal project campaign that we are in conjunction with the Sandy Springs Rotary. Next slide. City is affiliated as partners in two authorities from a public safety perspective, one being with Chatcom, the 911 Center, but the second one being the North Fulton Regional Radio System Authority. And what this is that it exists to provide a reliable and locally funded public safety radio system for 8 police and fire agencies serving more than 280,000 residents. All the cities of North Fulton are involved with the exception of Johns Creek. They are partners with us in Chatcom, but they are not involved they chose to stay with Fulton County Radio System. But the other cities are partners with us. It's a 700, 800 megahertz radio system and handles all of the radio communications for police and fire, along with provides it, it also works in conjunction with the surrounding agencies as well with their radio systems. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Yes, sir. Close to 70,000. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We had people at the very beginning of the administration of the vaccines at the site in Alpharetta. We staffed there with volunteers from our FARCOR program, and I sent 1 to 2 engines every day up there with personnel that would administer the vaccines. We also had a site working with CORE on Morgan Falls. I helped staff that myself, give vaccines there. We did that for several months as well.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Emery, and I'm the Human Resources Director, and I've been with the City of Sandy Springs for 2 days. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about human resources. The Human Resources Department does recruiting, hiring, onboarding. We're in charge of job safety, compensation and benefits, labor law compliance, employee relations, performance management, and training and development. Any questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Crook. I'm the IT director. We also oversee the GIS department for maps. There's 4 primary divisions for the IT department. It's the operations, infrastructure, security, and GIS. Operations is primarily end user support, where we provide software and hardware for employee staff or city staff. And we also provide technical project management. Infrastructure is the backbone. That's where we have servers that support the applications that are used by internal city staff, along with storage and connectivity. We have a cybersecurity initiative as well. So we have dedicated resources for the various levels of cyber protection at the city. I started in 2011. I've been the director for the last 5 years.
Any hybrid, cloud and infrastructure?
We are doing both, yes. We have some here and some.
Can you repeat the question?
The question is, do we have any hybrid technology? And the answer is yes. We do have technologies on site as well as in the cloud.
I'm Kathy Williams. I'm in the city attorney's office, one of the assistant city attorneys. Dan Lee is the city attorney. He's appointed by the mayor and approved by council. We assist the city on, and its boards and commissions on all sorts of matters. You have to be pretty much knowledgeable in all areas of the law. We do city operations, personnel matters, risk assessment. We advise on Georgia open meetings and open records laws. We acquire real estate for the city, negotiate contracts. We work with purchasing on procurements for the city, and we're involved in litigation that the city's involved in. The city solicitor is also a part of the legal department. He prosecutes traffic violations, misdemeanors, and any other city code violations. There are city attorney Dan Lee, and then 2 assistant city attorneys and a paralegal. And I've been with the city since 2007. So.
My name is Cheston Roney. I'm the court administrator. I've been here since May of 12, so over 9 years. A lot of changes over the years since I've been here, but a little just basic information. Municipal court, the primary purpose, like other trial courts, is just offer an impartial forum for the adjudication of disputes. Municipal court is usually a misdemeanor criminal defendant, usually traffic, or could be an ordinance. Traffic usually composes between 80 to 90% of our cases. Most of the offenses for the municipal court are relatively minor. Some include jail time. Jail time is required. We use the city of Smyrna jail. We also use Pickens County as a backup. Volume of cases for us has ranged since I've been here. Usually right the last few years around 18,000. At a size of 23,500. We have court between 3 to 4 days a week, which includes arraignment, code enforcement, and trials. We pivoted last year, and we made our court paperless as we started back. We use Zoom, and so we do virtual court every Friday. And our solicitor does pre-trial hearing for the attorneys. Our judges do Skype with our first appearance hearings, all except for 1 day a week. So we made a lot of changes in our court that are beneficial, I think, to the public. Stakeholders for court would be judges, solicitors, interpreters, probation officers, defense attorneys, revenue clerks, and further court office. Questions?
I'm going to decide what cities here.
So if a case is bound over, it can be the request of the defendant, or it can be.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question was how do we determine what is bound over to Fulton County State Court, or State and Superior Court. So that can be a request of the defendant. If it's a state charge, then it can be bound over, or it can be at the request of the solicitor or the judge.
Good afternoon, Ken D. Simone, Police Chief. I've been with the city for 12 years and going into my 9th year as the police chief. So does anybody not know what a police department does? Okay, just watch TV. Just real quick, the police department, we're broken down into these different units and divisions. Uniform patrol, obviously the biggest and most visible section of the police department. And then comes the criminal investigation division. After that, we have crime scene investigations, criminal intelligence unit, and that unit collates information on criminal elements and people and pushes it out both to the detectives and patrol officers. And then we have a pretty large special operations division, which has a bicycle patrol, street crimes unit, traffic unit, canine unit, and a traffic response vehicle. Those are 2 trucks that work 285 and 400. Sandy Springs Police Department is a full service agency. And what that means is we do not have to go outside of Sandy Springs for any assistance. Some agencies, even agencies around us, if they have, say, a fatal traffic accident, they may not have traffic investigators who are reconstructionists. So they have to call the Georgia State Patrol in to do that for them. Or they may have to call the GBI in to do certain investigations for them. We have narcotics investigations, and we work with all federal task forces. So we are a full service agency. The only thing we don't have is a DNA lab because of the cost. We have a Office of Professional Standards that's recruiting and training. Have a fairly large administration section, records, number one records, accident reports. People get a lot of accident reports. Permits, GCIC's Georgia Criminal Information Center, that's housed up in our Chatcom 911 Center, and Quartermaster for all the uniforms and equipment that officers have. We have a large community affairs unit, North Metro SWAT. That is a SWAT team that covers Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, Brookhaven, and Dunwoody. And Sandy Springs being the largest city, we have the most officers on North Metro SWAT. Technology and innovation, police departments anymore, a lot of technology involved with it. From body cameras to radios, there's a lot of technology. So we have one sergeant assigned specifically to that, laptops in the cars. Have a large training unit. And then we have special units, and these are part-time units that the rest of these are full-time units, and the special units are part-time officers volunteer to work there. Honor Guard, Quick Response Force, that is a riot control team, and for active shooters, Swift Water Rescue, the fire chief mentioned that, and crisis negotiation team that works with the SWAT team. Next slide, please. Like I said, we have a large community outreach. We have over 50 volunteers in our Citizens on Patrol program. And they come out and do anything from work wrecks, they'll actually work wrecks in parking lots, to stranded motorist calls. So that runs 7 days a week, all the way up to about midnight. So very, very great program. Women's self-defense, another popular program. All these programs I'm going to mention, there's a waiting list every month to get in these classes. Citizens firearm safety, citizen on patrol, active shooter training, our neighborhood watch, commercial and residential safety assessment, CEPTED, that's crime prevention through environmental design. And if a resident or business owner wants a trained police officer to come to his house or his business and give them tips on how to reduce crime there, it's free service we have. And we have a police benevolent fund. We hold a golf tournament every year. And I just finished a board meeting, came here. We've got over $800,000 in our bank account for the benevolent fund. And that's used just to help police officers, firefighters, EMTs, dispatchers in Sandy Springs. And we've been so successful, it's been in existence for over 10 years. We help other police agencies, law enforcement agencies, fire agencies in the state. That's fun. That's it. Oh, Chatcom, you hear that term? That means you're not on one center. So they have all the 911 calls coming in for police, fire, EMS. They take care of those and dispatch the appropriate agencies to do that, to answer those calls. Any questions? All right. Yes, sir. Violent crime is up. Violent crime is up. Homicides, rapes, armed robberies, yeah, and aggravated assaults, shootings, stabbings, domestic related assaults. Percentage wise, I think it's up 24%, but I'd have to check the numbers on that. This year, I believe we've had seven homicides this year. Last year it was 3. So violent crime is up. It's up not only metro-wide, it is up nationally. Some cities over 100% increase in homicides. So it's a real challenge for law enforcement. And of course, our next door neighbor is Atlanta, in particular Buckhead. And as everybody knows, the crime is so bad there that there's a movement to break that part of Atlanta away from the city. So that's how serious this crime issues become. All over. You know, from south to just had a murder last week out on Dunwoody Club Drive. Kroger parking lot. That was a drug deal that went bad. Two different parties, two individuals in each party. Both groups had guns and got in a shootout. Any other questions? All right, thank you all.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marty Martin. I'm Public Works Director. I've been with the City of Sandy Springs since 2007 through both consultants that provided public works services to the city. And I've had the privilege and pleasure of serving as Public Works Director since 2018. To deliver services to the citizens of Sandy Springs, Public Works is organized across 5 functional groups to provide the services within our responsibilities. First of those, traffic and transportation. So our transportation planners, traffic engineers, and probably the folks you see the least, but know the most about when things aren't working well with them, our traffic management center staff. And those folks have active control of the majority of our traffic signal systems within the city. Roadway, right-of-way, field services, and utility permitting. We'll call that field services, and that's the name of the unit if you look on an org chart anywhere, field services. They handle the majority of things associated with maintaining and repairing the rights of way and roadways within the city. So mowing contracts, litter patrol contracts, repair of curb and gutter, catch basins, et cetera, along the roadways, pothole repair, street sweeping, the repaving program. All of that is within field services as well. The majority of all of the utilities that users in Sandy Springs enjoy are typically located within our right of way. So we have an office within field services that manages all of the utility permits. That's access and right to work within the right of way for all the utilities that are located in the city of Sandy Springs, working within the right of way. We also have 2 units dedicated to delivery of capital projects in the city. One, our traditional CIP unit or capital programs unit, and they handle projects and deliver those projects from a multiplicity of fund sources, be it local funds, federal highway administration funds, community development block grant funds, you name it, a variety of sources for the major capital projects they work. To the T-SPLOS program delivery unit, specifically created to deliver projects for funds collected under the T-SPLOS or Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. With the city of Sandy Springs, we began T-SPLOS collections along with the other cities in Fulton County outside of Atlanta through an IGA with Fulton County back in the spring of 2017. So for T-SPLOS 1, which we'll call that, those collections will end in the spring of 22. As many of you are probably aware, I assume all of you are aware, on the ballot for this November as well is voter consideration for T-SPLOS 2021. T-SPLOS Next, if you want to call it that, which hopes to continue the efforts that we've begun and are hoping to sustain under T-SPLOS 1. We also have a stormwater management unit that maintains, repairs, and improves stormwater systems within the city right of way and in other areas as deemed appropriate for city stormwater responsibilities. And then finally, the construction management unit, which serves all units, providing construction inspection and support services to all of those other units within the city. Outside of this, in support of these 5 units here, we also have a second tier of supporting service contractors. And so when you tangibly see trucks with Sandy Springs logos and a bucket on the back, or mowers on the ground, whatever the case might be, that's a handful of major service contractors that are our second tier, providing those services throughout the city. Many of those service contractors are here daily. Many of them have been here longer than I have, providing those services for the city, though through competitive contract sources. A couple other threads I mentioned to you as I talk about this chart. Across all departments, we provide 24-hour emergency support services. Tree goes down in wires, closes the roadway, takes out power in a portion of the city. It's going to be one of our folks out there. Police and fire are going to be there first, and they're going to be out there to coordinate Georgia power recovery, tree service removal, those kinds of things. When you think about severe weather recovery and actions associated with that, get trees down again, flooding, whatever the case is, our folks are there to coordinate construction or contractor activities to restore the site after those conditions, and winter weather operations. We also coordinate when the snow does fly here in Sandy Springs. And one other thing I would provide you as information, and should you need more information, is every one of these units can be accessed via our Citizens Call Center. So all of the units are linked with a common software that allows a caller 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, through the call center to identify a problem, get a tracking number, and then get status and updates on those issues as our staff, as those work items are passed out to our folks, and then our folks tackle those. Do you have any questions for me this afternoon?
We got a question about the Sandy Springs Works app. Sandy Springs Works app.
We're talking about see, click, fix, possibly. Okay, so that's one of the apps provided by through our communications department as an online or an app tool to be able to identify works. That works not as reliably, I testify, as say our call center process, which gives immediate feedback and an immediate tracking number, where the app has to go through a process or two to get to our folks. All right. Yes, ma'am.
With City of Atlanta providing water service, if there's a break or breach in the line, is it just handled through them, or do you ever get involved?
We typically always get involved. So is what I would leave you with. Typically, those lines are in roadways within our right of way. Okay. So there we have that core and inherent responsibility to administer things, permit things within our right of way. So especially in the case where a water line breaks, impedes the ability to use the roadway, we typically will manage the traffic control, say barricades going up, those kinds of things. We'll monitor the repair. Atlanta Water comes to do all of the work, don't get me wrong there. And then we'll monitor the reopening of the roadway, and we'll as well monitor the restorations to the roadways or other parts of the rights of way associated with those repairs. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. Everybody well? Good, good. Welcome. I'm Michael Ferry. I'm the Recreation and Parks Director. I have had the privilege of serving here in Sandy Springs for almost 5 years. While I am the Director of Recreation and Parks, we prefer to be called the Department of Fun. But while I say that, we're also 100% committed to providing the finest world-class recreation and park services we can to the city. So with that said, I want you to know we have 20+ public parks and green spaces. I list sustainability on there because in addition to recreation and parks, the city sustainability division falls under our department. So we're proud to have him. Thanks a lot. For a little bit of detail, the first three elements that you see up there are documents that we use and depend upon to formulate our plan of action, those being the Recreation Parks Master Plan, the Sandy Springs Trail Master Plan, and the Sandy Springs Park and Public Spaces Plan from 2020. In addition to these, the next four items are ways that we go about addressing our programming here in the city. We have city-run leisure and athletic programs that are run by city staff. We utilize third-party and contracted programmers to do additional programs. An example of those would be the Sandy Springs Tennis Center and the paddle shop operation down at Oregon Falls. We also depend heavily upon our public schools. We have intergovernmental agreements, those being IGA with Fulton County Schools. And the benefit of those, we don't pay for those as we use them. What the city has tried to do is make capital improvements to these schools so that the kids get the benefit of those improvements during the day. And in the after-school hours, the city is able to use them. So rather than paying rental fees every month to the Fulton County Schools, we utilize those funds to make capital improvements that benefit all. And finally, we have a wonderful relationship with all of our nonprofits here in Sandy Springs and depend upon them greatly. So that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you. It's going to be sunshiny. Get out of the parks.
Question. Hi, we have another question on Zoom from Megan Harris, candidate for District 1. Megan states, there are several reviews about municipal court customer service and lack of availability when people call to ask general questions, including unable to leave voicemails because the voicemail is full and poor service experiences. How are we monitoring these experiences? What is the process if a civilian wants to report their complaints or praises?
So for municipal court, we actually have a survey that we do offer individuals that come into court to take, and we also email that out after virtual court so that we can see the feedback from anyone to be able to respond appropriately. We'll make sure we're giving it good customer service and world-class customer service for court. I think it's very important to me to make sure that we're available at all times. We don't actually have a voicemail. We do have email, and we try to make sure we always respond within 24 hours once we receive an email. And if there are any complaints that come to court, I make sure that I try to address it as quickly as possible. But I try to make sure I always respond within 24 hours to anyone that does have a question with this court.
Thank you, Cheston. And the second half of the question is, do we have a pre-trial diversion program for first-time nonviolent offenders? Why or why not?
We do have a pre-trial diversion program. It's run through our solicitor's office. We're actually going to be starting pre-trial programs for our accountability courts, which will be our mental health and drug programs. We actually have RFPs, or requests for proposals going out for a drug treatment provider. In addition to expand the services of our probation department to help cover that within this next month. And we'll be starting those shortly over the next couple of months, those particular programs to expand that pretrial diversion program. But it's run through our solicitor's office, and it's probation helps to maintain those programs.
Right. So finally, let's see. We have just a few more, just only one or two more slides. We're close. These are some additional ways that we engage with our citizens. So the list, I wanted you to be sure you got to see this list. And then I know there are lots of other ways that we could connect with people, and we may just need that feedback from the council members that come into office in November. And so this is what our group does now. We have a number of community meetings when we need them. You can think about the North End plan with the series of meetings, our transportation master plan, a number of meetings. So there's that kind of interaction. There's also a chance to meet each developer can come and sit in person or online right now for a developer meeting to go through the permitting process. Of course, you can see the other meetings related to the permitting and planning functions. And then finally, our public information open house meetings usually relate to a GDOT program or project coming up. And then on the right-hand side, this is more of the print and social media focus of our citizen engagement. So we are active on social media, and we also then entertain an update of an email list that is extensive, that allows us to get the monthly newsletter. So if you're not on that yet, you can go on the web and sign up. We have done a quarterly newsletter, number of newsletters. We like to keep people informed. Our weekend review gets sent out through our city council members quite often, and certainly it's available to give. And that's just a summary of all of the accomplishments tasks at the task level for our departments. We are developing a budget in brief because we feel like it's important for us to share out to the community how our budget is developed and what it includes. So a much shorter version of the budget's being developed. It's a written document, but it'll be online. We do lots of web surveys as well. But we're open to lots of suggestions for additional outreach. And this is only another slide to explain that to you. Let's go to the next slide. These are our resources. So as we wrap up, this is my last slide. I just want to thank you for indulging us to let us, first of all, share the passion that we have for each of our specialty areas. You can ask each one of these staff, they're doing exactly what they love. They do it really well. And yet we have to work together, and not one department gets to claim all the fame, and then we have to solve problems collectively and collaboratively. So we do that, but these are the information sources that I think will be helpful for you as you work through your election time. And we will be excited to have a candidate. We'll be excited to have a new council member orientation for those who have win their seats after the November election. So this won't be the last time. If you end up in the council seat, then I'll be happy to put together another time where we go over a little more detail. But again, I'm just asking for your cooperation in letting us have the day-to-day operation and not be ask questions that put us in a difficult position to want to help one person, but we can't help you all the same, and we just need to stay separate for the next 60 days. And then we've tried to give you the resources so you can do a great job in your campaigns. And then finally, all everything is on the web, and certainly this doesn't preclude you from calling Ginger for sign questions, or PD for any emergency that you have. We just want you to know that we value the fact that you've chosen to run for office, and we thank you for your service here in the election time and for those who win. And so with that, thank you so much. Yes.
I had a question about communications. Is there like a matrix of what communications are via each vehicle? For example, what types of communications are done via social media versus the newsletter versus some other thing?
Okay. Yes, possibly. Let me see if we can pull Jason back up as and Jason is fairly new, so he'll do the best he can, and we can add on. But the goal here is all of our social media. We have channels, right? All the Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Sandy Springs PD. You can see the different feeds that happen. So all of those are city social media. Is that what you're asking?
Well,
this is more like, this would be an example, they were paving Dalrymple. So I was wondering, you know, put that on social media so that people that live around that area know to avoid it. Then come in
Okay,
a
that's
text
a good-
message that says, you know, avoid this area. I
Okay,
didn't see it on Facebook. I know you have a paving strategy, but I don't know how many people would ever go look at that to know that they're.
that's a very good example. Okay, so that'll include a couple of departments, Public Works, and certainly communications. And I'm thinking that we should have listed next door on this list a bit. So that's another communications tool is next door. So Jason or Marty, would you like to tackle how we would notify about paving, for instance, the Dalrymple example?
There's a couple of different. Right, so we, as a rule, develop information based on history where people need to know. And one of those is traffic advisories that we provide to our communications department. And that, I believe, and Jason, you may have to chime in here, goes out through several different venues. For instance, you'll see the paving schedule in the week in review as a part of that. And all traffic advisories are also posted on a city traffic advisory page. So we have paving schedule, we have capital projects that are going to have traffic interrupting activities with them. Those are posted as part of that traffic roadwork advisory page out of the, on our webpage. And I believe it's going out through other avenues as well at the same time. Communications can speak more to that from that end. But we do forecast and predict where we're impacting traffic, at least on a schedule, as opposed to tree down and wires as we build our weekly schedules, get that posted up.
Marty, thanks. So I apologize because I may not have heard the question fully because I think it was maybe coming from the back of the room. But I do know that we do use social media, both Facebook and Twitter, for different things that might be announcement related that could impact someone's travel throughout the city. I would probably have to look into that a little bit more to see where else things like that might be going. But I do know that we do use those social handles for announcements of that nature. And I hope that's helpful.
Okay, other questions? This is just because our online group can't hear. Otherwise, thank you for waiting on that.
The city center master update plan be a public process.
Kristen, I'm going to let you chime in and then can you tackle that one? You're working on the proposal.
Yes, there will be a very robust public process as part of the city center master plan update. Any planning effort that we do, we always want to make sure we incorporate a public input process. So that will be absolutely critical to this one as well.
And so maybe just remind them of where we are in that process. You may have said it earlier, but just that we are about to select, right?
Yes, we are in the process. We've received proposals on an RFP that we put out to conduct the master plan itself. So we'll be selecting a firm as a next step. That will be, in the month of September or early October, when we will bring that to council for their consideration, and then we'll be able to get started on the planning process at that point.
Okay.
Not a question, just a comment, but thank you very much for not only this manual, but putting this on. I know there were some questions, but this has really been very, very helpful. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Listen, thank you. Your time was very valuable. We're just glad that you took the time to take a moment and learn a little more and that we can help in that process. So,
I do have one more question.
oh, good. One more, just one more. Hang on.
That's good. That's good.
Could the Sandy Springs app be a tool to improve outreach efforts in a cost-efficient manner for gathering data and notifications? Some great points have been brought up with our diversity and inclusion task force, and one of the highlighted concerns was our capacity to reach our residents, owners, and renters who do not get the local paper. This question is from Megan Harris.
So Megan, I think I'm gonna make sure that Jason online also, and maybe he can see that question, that we capture that. I don't know the answer right now, but I believe that that is absolutely something we'll look at. That Sandy Springs app has been more of a public works, report a pothole type of app, but it doesn't mean it can't evolve or that there isn't some other tool that we can use to reach out to folks. We want to know what those avenues are. We struggle to always continue to get the word out. So let us take a run at that. Thank you for asking. Anybody else? All right, I think it's 5:58. All right, thank you again. I hope this has been helpful. PowerPoint will be online. Good luck. Congratulations on your candidacy and good luck with your race.